Welcome, everybody, to another issue of Nerdsplain, your favorite comic book podcast. My name is House, and I am joined by my three other horsemen of the Nerdpocalypse. Dave, how we doing today, buddy?
Drop!
And Greg, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing great.
Jess, how are you? You contain your laughter right now.
I'm wonderful.
Hashtag she can't even.
Hashtag can't even. Everybody. So right out of the gate, the four of us wanted to thank all of the people that have been listening to us through our first two episodes. The first episode, we went over, just kind of some standard comic book terminology to keep people in the loop when it comes to some of the stuff we talk about here and help them feel smart at the water cooler at work when we're talking about the movies and stuff that happens in the comics. The second episode, we talked about timelines through Marvel and DC. We touched on some of their big events, which is going to kind of segue us into today's episode a little bit. Something that we wanted to throw out there is we want everyone to stay tuned for details about about a giveaway that we're going to have here at the end of the episode. We're going to be offering up a digital copy of Justice League. Mm-hmm. So definitely stay tuned for the end of the episode to find out how you can win that. Don't forget to subscribe. Jess, where are they subscribing to?
Anywhere that you listen to your podcasts.
Yep.
But definitely, if you were listening on iTunes, rate and review the podcast. That'll help our ranks and help new listeners find us.
We also want to announce that Nerdsplain It now has a hotline for listeners to call in and ask questions that we may not have answered during the episode. The number for that is 805-669-7230. Again, that number is 805-669-7230. Please use that hotline. Call us up. Just with any of the questions that you have. It has to do with any of the things we've talked about on any of the episodes so far, or if we vaguely mention something and you want some more detail on it, or if you just got a question out of the blue, please call us up. We'd love to sit down, open up a discussion about it, and fill you in. On today's issue of Nerdsplain It, this is episode issue 3. I like calling them issues. We're talking about comics. Let's keep it comic themed. So that's what I'm gonna call them. I don't care about the rest of you.
It's like a therapy session.
It is. It really is. So today, since we've got in Marvel's Infinity War movie, which is right around the corner, Dave, that's coming out, April
27th, I think? 27th? Something like that.
So with Infinity War coming out in a couple of weeks, we wanted to catch some people up. There are still some people that don't necessarily know. Well, they probably understand what's going on. They've seen most of the other Marvel movies. The overall plot of the movie we're going to touch on a little bit, but we're going to go into basically the MacGuffins of the Marvel Universe. For anybody who doesn't know what a MacGuffin is, Dave, tell them what a MacGuffin is.
A MacGuffin is an item that has sort of a feigned importance in a film. It was something that Alfred Hitchcock, I think he actually coined the term, because a lot of his films, it was like, I think honestly the Maltese Falcon, even, which wasn't a Hitchcock film, but was also a MacGuffin. It's just something that the plot sort of revolves around, but it never really does anything.
Right. So the Marvel movies have had several, and they are culminating in Infinity War. Well, at least that's what advertising would tell us. Since the Marvel movies have started, about 2000, Iron Man came out, 06, 08?
Oh, God, yeah, forever ago.
Yeah, 08. No, I thought it was 06. Whatever. They're the same year.
Yeah.
But they have introduced the Infinity Stones through their past couple of movies, and introducing Thanos, you can say it either way, and what he is trying to do by collecting all 6 of them. So what we want to do was go through, talk about those Infinity Stones, where they came from, what purpose do they serve, what powers do they give, and how screwed are the heroes.
And most importantly, where did Thanos pick up the skin condition that Michael Jackson had that turned him from that deep shade of a lovely royal purple into that weird fuchsia that he is now?
That scrotum pink that he is now?
Is that what yours look? That's a scrotum color. Oh, geez. See a doctor. That is torsion.
It is torsion. I like to call it a daily challenge.
I see the faces of dead kings.
All right. So when we're going to jump right into the Infinity Stones here. I say jump.
They should have never given us a mic.
No. The Infinity Stones, or the Soul Gems, is what they were originally called in the 1960s when they first showed up. They didn't get redubbed the Infinity Stones or Infinity Gems until Thanos had all 6 of them. They were all called the Soul Gems. So let's look at where they had popped up in the movies. The first one we're going to talk about is the Space Stone. It showed up first in Captain America and the Avengers. It showed up in the form of the Tesseract. It was that big blue cube that Red Skull needed to get his hands on. That was the MacGuffin of that movie. It's what Red Skull was chasing down, and it's what Cap was trying to prevent him from getting. Currently, the Space Stone is being possessed by Loki. He has it right now on the ship that he's on with Thor at the end of spoiler alert, Thor Ragnarok. What was the name of that ship? It's my birthday.
Oh, I don't know.
Statesman. The Statesman is the name of that ship. Yeah, it's the Statesman.
The only ship I remember having a name was the Milano from Guardians.
Right.
It always bothered me though that they kept calling it the Tesseract, because it's the cosmic cube. It's the cosmic cube. It's a cube with cosmic power. That's what it was referred to in the comics. It popped up a lot in a ton of comics. It was like it was the MacGuffin through all the comics. It was like, oh, Red Skull wants it. Oh,
and then
Doctor Doom wants it. Everyone was trying to get their hands on it.
In rereading Infinity War and doing a bunch of research on Infinity War, a character pops up in the book or in the comics, and he has several cosmic cubes. There's more than just one of them. So,
so only one had an Infinity Stone?
Yeah, for the movie purposes, what they did is they just said, okay, they didn't even bring up cosmic cube. They just decided to call that one the Tesseract.
For simplicity's sake.
Right, but yeah, a lot of times when you see Red Skull or anybody in the Marvel universe trying to hunt down a big glowy cube, it's the cosmic cube, and it's just a giant Lego brick full of power.
Okay, it's actually how Captain America got Bucky to remember who he was.
Right.
In the comic version of Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Right.
So is it to kind of compare it to DC? Is it kind of like a mother box in that kind of sense, where there's multiple ones and
no, mother boxes in DC, they're really just used for communication and transport. Mother boxes can open boom tubes. Okay. I mean, we're definitely going to get into a Justice League conversation at some point about how that was kind of fumbled in the movie, because that's not what mother boxes do.
Between the terms mother box and boom tube, there's a metaphor there for the miracle of life in a delivery room.
Yeah, just screaming and sticking.
The mother box opens, the baby slides through the boom tube.
There it is.
Sometimes we say things because we're trying to get Jess to laugh.
Yeah, sometimes you can just break her.
Stay tuned after the podcast for the post-credits scene to see what that actually sounds like. Now you guys are stuck, and that has to be the post-credits scene. Thinking forward.
So
we're Jean-Ralphio.
We totally are Jean-Ralphio.
We're the worst.
So, the Space Stone showed up Captain America First Avenger. Loki currently has it because, well, he's swiped that. He made sure to run off with that in Thor Ragnarok. The powers that the Space Stone, if you just got the Space Stone and you know how to tap into it, you have to have a great deal of mental fortitude and physical fortitude to manipulate and use these stones. The Space Stone allows the user instant access to anywhere in the universe.
Okay.
So just by having the Space Stone, think about it, snap, gone, you're there.
But it is not a boom tube.
It is not.
It's not a mother box.
That would no. It's
no. Mother boxes, they open portals to different places. The Soul Stone, the Space Stone lets you go anywhere in the universe.
Right.
Not the same.
So in the movies, the Space Stone in the Tesseract was the color blue. In the comics, it wasn't blue. It was purple. There's no real. I couldn't give you a good enough reason as to why they changed the colors of these stones, but I guess that's really arbitrary.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
well, I mean, we saw a change in the stones, honestly, between Loki's staff, because Loki's staff had a blue gem in it, but when it gets shattered open,
it's yellow,
and the stone is revealed and put into Vision's head in Age of Ultron, it's yellow.
So. Right. Actually, we'll just go ahead.
So maybe the outer casing doesn't matter.
Probably not. And that's
what's inside.
That's actually the next stone we're going to jump to. Is actually the Mind Stone. It was in Loki's scepter, which he got from Thanos. So Thanos had the Mind Stone at one point.
Okay.
It shows up, technically the Mind Stone doesn't show up until Avengers Age of Ultron, when Ultron breaks the scepter open and puts it in Vision's noggin. So Vision currently has it. That's the one that he's got. The powers that the Mind Stone affords the person vastly increases their intelligence, and when really used appropriately, you can actually subjugate any mind you focus on. We saw how Hydra used that going into Avengers Age of Ultron with the Maximoff twins, the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We see them. What post credit scene were they in? It was Winter Soldier. Or was it? No, it was,
it was Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it was Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that's when we first saw Baron Strucker and Wanda and
Pietro. And they're in their little cells, and they're just tripping out. Was because they were able to use Loki's scepter, and we saw Loki use that scepter to take over people's minds. He took over Hawkeye, he took over Dr. Selvig. That was because the Mind Stone was in there and was affording Loki a limited amount of access to that power to control them.
Which it had to be a very limited amount, because since it didn't touch Tony Stark's actual chest, all of a sudden it didn't work.
Right, but if you
this all powerful, you can control anyone's mind, and general proximity, it has an issue with.
Right. So Loki had a limited access to that power because, basically in Thanos' hands, Mind Stone, all he's got to do is think about you or be looking at you, and boom, he's got you control. Yeah, just pining. Why didn't he ever try and use the Mind Stone on Death? We'll get into that. Why?
I think that was one of those things where he wanted Death to accept him on its. Yeah, exactly. It's like when Jess asks you if you're going to do something, right? And you ask, "Do you want me to?" And she goes, "No, I want you to want to."
Exactly how.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly how that happens. So, going into the next one we're going to talk about, and then the Mind Stone in the movies, we've talked about the color of it. Inside the scepter was blue, or when it was in the scepter it was blue, but when it gets cracked open by Ultron, we see that it is a yellow gem. In the comics, the Mind Stone was blue. Again, another arbitrary color change, but I'm throwing those in there as just neat little pieces of trivia for who anybody wants them. So the next one we're going to talk about is the Reality Stone. We saw it in Thor: The Dark World. It's the little item that Malekith was trying to get back.
It first appeared on MTV's Singled Out with Jenny McCarthy.
He's not wrong. We saw that one as red. It was the really liquidy one, and that one's kind of interesting.
Liquidy?
Liquidy.
Yeah, it was like a organic
it was the ether.
It was the ether.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's the only one that you can actually absorb into you. In order to you don't have to, but you can. It's a stone that is actually contained. How they describe it is contained in a liquid form, but it can be condensed into an actual stone to then be put in the Infinity Gauntlet.
Like if I had to have one of them, I'd go with the ether simply because at one point I would have been inside Natalie Portman.
I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I know.
Provided there's permission. So that one, for the Reality Stone, it allows the user the power to warp reality at will, and like I said, it can be absorbed. When we talk about warping reality, that one can be a little overwhelming for people to necessarily hear or understand, because you literally, if you have the control over it and you have a strong enough mind, you can literally bend and change all of reality, everything that exists, to however you see fit.
So Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes have the Reality Stone at Fox.
Yeah. Oh my God. You heard it here, folks. Nerd Planet cracked that one.
I just had a thought. So the purpose of Doctor Strange, I know Doctor Strange is a part of, the whole Thanos thing. Sorry. But what you just said about the whole people who may not understand the concept of that.
Right.
I wonder if the reason for Doctor Strange was to kind of give that some kind of ground so that.
Yeah, because we hadn't seen it up until Doctor Strange. We had heard of the Infinity Stones. We had seen these different MacGuffins used individually, but we hadn't seen one of these Infinity Stones used the way they were meant to be used. And actually, the next stone I was going to talk about was the one in Doctor Strange, which is the Time Stone.
Right.
So it's in the Eye of Agamotto. He was the first Sorcerer Supreme on Earth, and that one allows the user and all the abilities to manipulate time. They can peer into any moment in all of time, in all of history, and moving forward. So yeah, we saw Doctor Strange using that, go into the dark dimension, and then be able to manipulate somebody as powerful as Dormammu.
Right.
Dormammu basically being the god of his own universe that he's created, and this little tiny stone, when used appropriately, has an effect on even him.
I am so unwilling to say he manipulated Dormammu. He trolled him. He became an internet comment section at Dormammu for 5 minutes. I debated in the comments. I hated that ending. It was just trolling. Like, that's all it was. Oh, that drove me.
It wasn't an actual fight. No, you're not wrong. Was it? Breathe. Remember your pressure points. Usa. Do it all.
Just call me a ticket.
Nice fucking fish.
This nice feng shui we got going. Big rains. Go watch Bad Boys 2, everybody.
Great movie, by the way.
No, you're right. I think there's definitely, it goes both ways. Was it an amusing ending? Sure, but I mean, the movie was so closely related to the first Iron Man movie. They needed to do something a little bit different.
Yeah,
but that, like I said, like you were saying, we actually got to see the Infinity Stone used on a fairly large scale. Dormammu in the comics is immensely powerful. He's a being that was able to create his own universe that could devour other universes. And you see Doctor Strange walk right in there, and on day 2 of using the Infinity Stone, knows how to manipulate time that well. In the comics, the Time Stone was gold, not green. The next one we're going to talk about, there's only 2 left. There's a grand total of 6 of them in the main Marvel continuity. In some other alternate universes, there is a couple other ones. There's a black one called the Ego Gem, but they're not really considered part of the main 6 for the Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, and all those stories. But the other one, the second to last one we're going to talk about, is the Power Stone. In the comics, it's a red one, but it's the purple one that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy. It was the little orb. It was trapped inside that little orb that Peter Quill, Star-Lord, does take at the beginning of that movie, and then he's trying to sell and everything. That one, we actually got another one we got to see. Okay, what does this stone do? And we got to see Ronan start to use it. Made him incredibly tough, resilient. You can stand up to just about anything, and it gives you the strength.
Except for a dance-off.
But Chris Pratt, if he were dancing in front of me, the vapors.
Or a rocket launcher.
So
it was ultimately like the rocket launcher or the moon.
Right. But are you telling me that you could stand up to dance off, then rocket launcher to the face?
I do it all the time.
That's not entirely accurate. You do it some of the time.
I do. Okay, every other Thursday.
That's not all of the time.
We have movie night on the alternate Thursdays, and we have rocket launcher dance off.
Well,
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's other stones other than those 6.
Right.
So the Gauntlet, could those stones, do they all do one thing together?
They do.
Can you switch them out in the Gauntlet, or do they have to be those stones?
Well, these other stones that are in other universes as part of Marvel's multiverse, no, you can't. I was
just wondering because, playing Skyrim, you have different ingredients that make up different things. Is that essentially what could happen in the Gauntlet, or is it just those stones?
I think you could actually throw the Ego Gem in there. The problem is the Ego Gem is similar to the last stone we were going to talk about, in that in the comics, in the few times it's been shown, is actually sentient. And actually, it considers itself the embodiment of all of the Infinity Stones. So if you throw that in the gauntlet, and you're trying to wear the gauntlet, and you're trying to control all of them, unfortunately, your hand is now trying to kill you because it wants to be able to control all of them itself. To wrap up the Power Stone there, like I said, in the movies, it was glowy purple, but in the comics, that one was red. There was a misconception by some people that I know that red gem that was in the Juggernaut's head.
Oh, the Crimson Eye of Cyttorak.
Yeah, some people did think that was the Power Infinity Stone, but it's not. Nope. It was something just completely different.
That was actually like an alien stone. I think it might have come from the Shi'ar Empire. This is all stuff that, again, with the purpose of us being to dip your toe in the water, if you start reading X-Men comics and you get so far as you get into the Shi'ar Empire shit, you've gone pretty far. You don't need us. Get your other friends to like sharing.
Right? Yeah, you're good. You're good. Actually, let us know, and we can bring you in as a guest, and you can explain the X-Men to some people.
It's funny too, because when you go through and you look at all the movies that have led up to I think Avengers is what, Marvel 18 or 19. You look at all the ones that led up to that, and when they started putting in Thanos involvement, Thanos picks the shittiest henchman.
Oh,
he picks the shittiest, most untrustworthy henchman on the planet. This episode will not be ready for kids. He had the fucking Tesseract, and he just gave it to Loki. There you go.
Right. Well, he has the Mind Stone in this. He has the Mind Stone, and he just says, "Here, buddy, you go take it.
But now,
you go do the thing."
Okay.
He doesn't say no. What was that, Greg?
No, wait. No, okay. So speaking on the topic that you mentioned earlier about how not anyone can wield these gems, is it that he doesn't have a concern that people can just go on and do whatever they want with these stones? So.
That is actually a good point. I mean, Loki may not have the fortitude to wield the Mind Stone fully. However, if Thanos knew who Loki was, he knows that, okay, he's a trickster god,
right.
Or he at least has a lot of powers to make things happen on his own.
True.
And he knows that Loki isn't trustworthy. Why not use the Mind Stone to guarantee he does what you want him to do?
But at the same time, a child to a parent may know the child isn't that trustworthy, but the parent knows the child knows if he steps out of line, the parent's going to do something that the child's not going to like. So, and
okay, that's fair.
So, I mean, Loki obviously knows who Thanos is. So, would Loki really test that line with Thanos?
But you just made me realize something. There's an origin story movie I want to see. I want to see a Loki origin story because I want to see him develop his powers as a trickster god. So I want to see his first couple ones where it's like pull my finger or opposite day. I want to see that Loki started there before shape. Like, how awesome would that be?
Hey, Thor!
No, not again. God.
Yeah.
When his teenage years, he's saran wrapped in toilet seats.
He's cow tipping in Asgard.
Bill Schneip tipping.
Bill Schneip tipping in Asgard. So the last stone that we haven't talked about is the Soul Stone, and neither has Disney or Marvel in the MCU. The Soul Stone in the comics was green. We don't know what color it's going to be in the movies. I'm assuming it's going to be orange/gold because it's another one of the colors that's been used in the comics and hasn't been used in the movies yet. The Soul Stone, we don't know who has it. We don't know where it is. I figured they would have put that into Black Panther, but they didn't.
No.
Now, the Soul Stone, from the research that I did and from how it's referenced in Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet, is that stone is actually sentient. And in that it desires to collect souls. And that is a huge source of power because it literally, from any point in space, any point in time, you can just think about somebody and boom, you have their soul.
Shang Tsung would love that.
Shang Tsung would love that.
Everybody Shang Tsung tonight.
And it affords the user to actually peer into someone's soul using an ability. I think this was the only a big ability I could find. Or that I knew of that actually had like a named ability for any of the stones, but it was a power called the cold light of truth, and you could just peer into someone's soul and get get complete honesty or get the truth of a matter out of them. Now, so all of these stones individually, their power is universal in magnitude. You can be anywhere in the universe and have some kind of effect.
Okay.
If you have the power stone, you're on a planet and you're pissed, you can shatter that planet. I mean, like the Hulk trying to gently crack an egg. I mean, it's just going everywhere. Time stone allows you to manipulate all time. What Thanos wanted to do, and what he did do in Infinity Gauntlet, the story that came out in 1991 prior to Infinity War, is Thanos was putting them all together to literally wipe out half the universe. So he could be, and we can get into talking about how, he was doing this because he wanted to show the character Death that, hey, look what I just gave you. I just gave you half of all death in the universe all at once. Love me, please. So having them all together in one glove is a terrifying prospect. And that's why the heroes have to. And it's not just the Avengers that have to deal with that in the books, but we'll get to that here in a second. Greg, you had a question a minute ago?
Yeah, so earlier when you mentioned Loki, the god of deception, was it?
Yeah, the god of mischief.
Mischief.
Yeah.
Okay, so not to digress to our previous episode about, continuity, but it seems as if Disney has been kind of backpedaling a little bit on how they're going about the whole god thing. Because in the Dark World, his father had told him, we aren't gods. We are born, so on and so forth. We die. Yet in Ragnarok, when Thor had, his little issues, spoiler alert, he has said, are you the god of hammers?
Right.
Okay, well, why would he mention, is he a god of lightning? If the previous film, he said they're not gods at all.
Okay, so that's more that falls more into a semantic thing, but it also harkens back to something in the very first Thor, and a quote that I can't remember who said it, but any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic to a less advanced society. That's what Thor and all of his people are. They're a sufficiently advanced race that can live for thousands of years, and the Norse regarded them as gods. So it's basically like, remember how long it took for people to stop calling Pluto a planet? There you go.
True. Well, and I think it was I think it was in one of the Thor movies. He's talking to Jane Foster, and he says, "Oh, well, here on Earth, magic and science are two different things. I come from a place where magic and science are the same thing."
But then you have characters like Hela, who she's the god, she's the goddess of death. What are you the god of again? So it's like, well, again, they're throwing around.
Okay, so what sounds more intimidating? Hi, I'm Hela, the goddess of death, or hi, I'm Hela, the alien chick of death.
Right, and the thing, and like those, like the powers that they're. I mean, yes, they for the movies, it seems like what they did was they made it. They were able to make it a little more simple and a little easier to grasp hold of. That Asgard wasn't another plane of existence; it was a planet, even though it's just it's a flat Earth planet. It's one level. Yeah. That is a one-story planet. But they still have powers. They still have abilities. Now Hela, in the movie, they make her the older sister of Thor and Loki. In the comics, Hela was Loki's daughter. But yeah, she's the goddess of death, and she does rule over hell.
Okay.
In the comics. But I mean,
it's basically the short answer is it's best not to overthink it.
Okay. Right. I mean, because Marvel isn't. I mean, like if you look at DC, whereas that universe prescribes to a much more Judeo-Christian. There's heaven, there's earth, there's hell,
right.
Or there's heaven, there's the multiverse, and there's hell,
and there's the new gods,
and you have alternate dimensions. Whereas, as far as their comics are concerned, the Judeo-Christian God does exist and does it exist as part of the source, or are they one and the same thing? Maybe, possibly, but there is a Satan, and they do regard Satan as an actual character, and there's other demons, lesser demons, and all this kind of stuff. Marvel doesn't necessarily prescribe that, because you've got Mephisto, who is essentially the devil, but you've got Hela, which is the goddess of death, and she oversees hell, and then you've got a character like Death is an actual character in both Marvel and DC. Okay. So I guess you could say that Hela she's an agent of death. Gotcha. So for Marvel's continuity, Death is a person, and Hela is an agent of her, and she is fueled by more death that she causes. Okay, so then when you deal with characters like Peter Quill's father, even though he considered himself a god, it's more or less like a godlike being, because even him, he kind of because the Celestials, which is what Peter Quill's dad in Mogo not Mogo, Ego. God, I do that every time. Mogo's the DC version that's better. Ego in the movie he considered himself a Celestial. As far as I understand, Ego is not a Celestial. Okay. He is a being of great power, but not even to the Celestial level. And I think we could easily do an episode on the hierarchy of their cosmic universe.
It's best not to overthink it. Okay. You'll just spin yourself around in a circle. You really will.
Right. And now, as far as being able to take this information into a comic book shop, Dave, how does what we've gone over just with the Infinity Stones, how does this help people out?
If you're wanting to get into get an idea of what these sort of events look like going into what was actually the Infinity Gauntlet event in Marvel, your local comic book shop, there's not a chance in the world they do not have a copy of a trade paperback, a graphic novel of Infinity Gauntlet. Not a chance in the world. That thing has been reprinted time and time again. It gets reprinted every couple years. I can almost guarantee you're going to find that at your local bookstore, your local Half Price Books, Barnes and Noble, whatever bookstores in your area. Same with comic book shops. Go in, say, hey, do you have any graphic novel copies of Infinity Gauntlet? Boom, they're going to hook you right up. And you'll notice that what I said was Infinity Gauntlet, not Infinity War. It's because Marvel has named this film, despite the events that are going to be transpiring in it, reflecting the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. They've named it after another event that came a few years later. Marvel does that a bit,
right?
And to be fair, the Soul Stone, Paramount actually addressed that in 1998 in Coming to America. Soul Glow.
Soul Glow.
Gotta let it glow.
Yeah. So I'm glad Dave brought that up. As far as the title, so I wanted it. What we wanted
segues. I've got them.
He's got them. We're gonna take a second to break down what Infinity War was in the book. We're not gonna. I mean, it was a 6-issue series. I'm not gonna rattle off stuff about from all 6 issues. But if you do want to go find it, like Dave said, it's a really simple book to find. It's not a real long read. It is a very good read. It was one of Marvel's best big events. It was when they really had a grasp of that.
Well, and let's leave some mystery for him too. We don't want to give away surprise character drop-ins. We don't want to give away major plot points.
No, not necessarily.
That could also spoil parts of the movie.
Right. There's no way it's spoiling part of the movie.
Based on some of the stuff from Guardians 2, I will bet you there are parts that could be spoiled by reading off the events of Infinity Gauntlet.
It would be anyway. So to touch on Infinity Gauntlet, the story, because apparently me and Dave are fighting. To give you an idea, that story was not just localized to Thanos versus the Avengers. That book and that story was a much more what they call cosmic level story. It had to deal with characters that aren't on Earth all the time. They're more space-faring characters. So in that book, we've already had Thanos collect the Infinity Stones. He's already used them. And there is, okay, Dave may have had a point. There are some characters that, you're fair. Okay, that was fair. I was wrong, honey. I'm sorry.
Player 2 has entered the game.
Right. So there are other characters vying for the use of the Infinity Gauntlet. And then there are characters that are stepping in that have been referenced in previous Marvel movies, like the Living Tribunal, who basically is the judge, jury, and executioner of the Marvel universe. And they dictate that, okay, the gauntlet can't be used anymore and the stones can't be all used together anymore. Well, another character pops up and says, nuh-uh, and he wants to use it. Several other big echelon villains like Doctor Doom, Galactus, they get involved because they want to be able to use this power. And if Galactus is worried about somebody else having power, that's a concern.
Wow.
But don't worry, that won't happen in the movie because Marvel kills all of its villains.
Exactly. So that's actually the big point. I think the big conversation topic we wanted to get into. Infinity War in the book, in the comics, in 1992 when it came out, huge event, hugely popular event, but like I just said, deals with the cosmic universe more than it deals with the heroes on Earth. Now, granted, those heroes are involved. You got the X-Men involved. I mean, Daredevil is on the cover of the first issue of Infinity War. I'm not sure what kind of stick he's bringing to that fight, but blind punch.
Thanos doesn't travel well in space. He has nothing to go on.
Right. I mean, that's literally a blind kid flat God.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
He has no idea what's good. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Daredevil. I actually have a big Daredevil tattoo. I'm a huge fan of the character. Boy, did you pick from the wrong squad when bringing those heroes into the fight.
Even Wolverine is on the cover of that one. Claws popped and all. And
no, Wolverine beats everybody. Just watch any episode of any hypothetical fight channel on YouTube Wolverine or anything else. Wolverine wins every time.
Every time. So I think we wanted to wrap today's episode with a conversation about how Marvel is doing their movie titles. We just got done covering Infinity War. It was a really brief synopsis. I get that, and it was shadowy at best, but I didn't want to give away too much about the book because I do genuinely want people to go out, pick up Infinity War, do yourself a favor. The year before that, 1991, Infinity Gauntlet came out. If you want to understand anything that's going on in Infinity War, in the book that is, pick up Infinity Gauntlet, read that first. It was a 6 or 8 issue series. It's another one that any comic book shop is going to have. Pick that up, then read Infinity War. But what we wanted to talk about today was Marvel titling their movies after these big events in the comic books, but not really relating to the story that was on the page. Infinity War is going to be the most recent, I don't want to say transgression, but example of this.
I'll say transgression.
That's fine.
It's a transgression. It's not the worst. It's not the worst that Marvel's had.
The biggest one for me is Civil War. Yep. Because Civil War, as we talked about in our previous episodes, was a big event. It involved everybody.
Well, everybody on Earth.
Everybody on Earth, Thor wasn't around for it. Thor was dealing with Ragnarok, wasn't he?
No, the Ragnarok robot was there
for a moment. Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't on planet, didn't pick sides, and when he got back and the Ragnarok robot, when he found out about that, he was pissed.
He was so pissed. I loved it.
But there was a lot of characters that were involved in Civil War that played a bigger part, and since Marvel didn't have the rights, the film rights to those characters, they couldn't be used.
And since they kill a bunch of villains.
This is true.
You will never hear me not harp on Marvel for killing off villains, especially when, for example, Black Panther, you have 2 great villains, 2 of the best ones they've done in a long time, if ever. And now we don't get to see them anymore, and that really bites.
It really does. It really does.
So do they just not kill villains in the comics, or is it just very uncommon?
The only person that stays dead in Marvel Comics is Ben Parker.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. That is the only person that stays dead in a Marvel comic is Peter's Uncle Ben. And that's sort of it's a unbreakable rule that they have. Ben Parker has to be dead or else Peter has no reason for doing what he's doing. Everyone else, Captain America died in the comics in about 2005. I remember my one of my theater professors from Lindenwood was interviewed on the news about it. They brought him back. People don't stay dead in comics. Superman died, came back. Batman died, came back. But I've lost track of how many Green Lanterns have died and come back.
Right, but for on film, you can't necessarily. I guess they're afraid to do it, or they don't bring the villains back. The only one they've brought back is Loki, and they've obviously been leading up to Thanos.
Well, they killed Phil Coulson in Avengers, and brought him back onto a subpar TV show.
Right. The big problem with that is in the comics. Sure, you kill off somebody and you can bring them back. For the movies, because a lot of these villains, like Red Skull, for example, people can him and haw. Oh, is he dead? Is he not dead? No, dead. And the actor who played him doesn't ever want to play him again. So you off him in the movie, and it's okay. There are dozens and dozens of stories for the Red Skull to do and be a part of that. Now he can't. There's another transgression. We talked about Civil. I was going towards Civil War. Is what I was trying to do. It wasn't at all like it was in the books. I mean, yes, Spider-Man has a big cameo and a big, his moment in the sun for the movie. In the books, he was in the actual comics. His involvement was huge. Because for anybody to know, in the comics, there was the Superhuman Registration Act, I think is what it was, and it dictated that everybody who had any sort of abilities or powers, whether they were mutants or bitten by a spider or their grandma knitted them a neat sweater, they had to register so everyone knew the name of a person, their superhero identity, and what abilities they had. Now, there were some heroes that were for it, and there were some that were against it. Well. And Peter Parker, Spider-Man, he started out on one side of it, and then Tony Stark convinces him, no, we're going to be protecting people and saving people if if we go this way and we get the Registration Act passed. So Peter Parker steps up in front of a bunch of news cameras and takes his mask off.
Thinking about the Human Registration Act, or whatever you want to call it, or whatever they called it, that seemed a large part to do with mutants, which they couldn't do because of Fox. Now, fast forward to Civil War, it's like they had nothing to do with the fact that they were people with like mutants or anything like that, like registering. It seemed more to do with the fact of keeping them in check because of the destruction caused by the acts of saving kind of things.
So here's okay. So to address that, here's where you get another difference between the comic event and the movie. In the movie, we know that the act comes around because of the Sokovia Accords, which is something that is enacted after some destruction in Age of Ultron, and in the beginning of Captain America's Civil War. In the comics, it's known as I think it's the Greenwich, Connecticut incident. So in the comics, there's a comic group of teenage superheroes called the New Warriors. They've been around since like the 90s, Night Thrasher, Speedball, stuff like that. Another great one named after drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
And the New Warriors actually have a reality show. Cameras follow them on their adventures. Well, they track a group of superpowered villains and try to do a bust on the cameras. Well, they corner a very powerful guy named Nitro, who has an ability to detonate himself with great yield. And he does that, and he kills, and I'm pretty sure he does it in front of a school. And he kills, I think it's 383 people, many of them children. And they feel like the reason it happened is because the New Warriors, being teenagers and reality stars, weren't properly trained to deal with a threat like Nitro. So they want to rein them in and also train them up to a certain standard. So lives like that don't get lost again. And that was something that actually kind of bothered me when I noticed that they said, when they first announced Captain America 3's Civil War, I thought, nope, this is going to fail because you're going to leave that out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of gravity to that.
There's so much gravity to it. It happens on American soil, whereas for all the stuff that happened on American soil in the first couple Avengers, nobody's held accountable for that.
No.
That was my And they bring it up too, like, oh, New York. Well, let's see. S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to detonate a thermonuclear device in Manhattan and kill millions of people.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, Washington, D.C. Yeah. S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to take Stark designed helicarriers with Hydra technology that they didn't know about and put them over the world. These are all domestic events.
Right.
And now when it happens outside of the borders, all of a sudden people are concerned. I just thought it was so weird that they did it like that. And also with the whole comic one, you get a awesome character named Penance out of it. I loved Penance. A lot of people hated him. What's up, Greg?
Well, the other question to that, to add to the Civil War with Spider-Man's involvement, because Civil War wasn't actually the same Civil War that you find in the comic books. How, Spider-Man was important in the comic books, he wasn't really that important in the film. Is that why seemingly his involvement in the new Avengers movie isn't as significant either? Because
we don't. I mean, as far as the new Avengers movie, we don't know how significant he is. I mean, as significant he is, we've seen him in a lot of the trailers, and presumably, since Disney spent so much money to get him back and involved in this property, I imagine he's going to play a pretty big part. Now, Spider-Man going up against Thanos with even one or two of the Infinity Stones, as we've talked about today, what the Infinity Stones can do. Right. Spider-Man isn't doing anything against Thanos.
I think Thanos needs a stone for that.
No, I don't know. And Thanos, for being what he is, a genetically different alien who really can handle his own against most anybody on a good day. A teenager from Brooklyn or Queens or whatever borough, Queens.
Realistically, let's look realistically.
It doesn't matter what suit you put him in, he's in trouble.
Gotcha.
But
he's actually a Balchinian.
He's a Balchinian. Now, one story that I haven't actually gotten a chance to read. I've always wanted to, and I know we have it here in our comic book library. Is Captain America: The Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
One of Dave's favorites as far as the Captain America story is concerned.
Ed Brubaker for the win.
But I don't. You tell us, how accurate is that to the comics?
It's been a while since I've read it, but I will say that when it came to Winter Soldier, I think it was less about getting the specific events of it from the comics right, as it was getting the soldier, getting the characters into the places that they needed to be. And that's actually why Winter Soldier remains probably my favorite Marvel film. The biggest difference is the ending, how Bucky stops almost murdering Captain America. In the movie, as you've probably seen by now, it's really Steve appealing to Bucky's emotions and his nostalgia and saying, oh, Bucky, remember me. Whereas in the comic, it's MacGuffin. It's literally Steve holds up the cosmic cube and says, remember, and then boom, memories restored. So it was actually, in that regard, I kind of I think I might like how the movie did it better, which sucks because I hate to say anything negative about Ed Brubaker's writing on that run. My God, did that man do some great stuff at Marvel.
So I've actually got a question for you, Greg, since you aren't as involved with reading this stuff on the page.
Okay.
And that's the perspective you bring is, just going to the theaters and checking the films out. But for people who haven't read any of these stories, is it important to you guys when you're going to the theater? You see it's Age of Ultron, it's Infinity War, and then you find out, oh, hey, that was a book. Does it matter? Does it matter how accurate that is to the page, or is it just people like me and Dave who get all up in arms about
it? For me, it's more so a topic of conversation because I'm surrounded by people who have read some of the stories. So I like to debate some aspects of the movie that I like, and then they debate their version of the stories are actually true. I don't know. Like for me, I enjoy it because it's a film. I enjoy action films, but they don't make me go and want to read the comic books. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's like the story's different anyway. So it's not like it's adding any extra value for me, at least, going into the movies.
I'm watching a movie to be entertained.
Right.
And I'm okay. Like, I think with Wonder Woman, there were a few things that I knew going in that, some things were different, but I was still entertained. And because things can be different, I'm getting that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Satisfaction.
The surprise and not knowing what's coming next. I'm okay with it as long as it's a good story and I'm entertained. It's doing its job, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to me, it doesn't kill the movie for me. If the movie's good, the movie is good. The title is an annoyance. I don't jump on internet comment boards and go all stupid about it because it's just a waste of time.
And see, that's the thing, because since I don't read comic books, when I see a movie title, Avengers Infinity War, the fact that this is Infinity War, I'm so out of the loop in terms of really what that means. It's just a title of a movie to me versus someone who does read comic books. You guys are not, this is extreme, but what the fuck? Like,
right.
We all know this isn't going to be
Dave and I were talking about this because I think they had changed their plan because Infinity War is a holdover for when this was actually supposed to be a part 1 to part 2,
right.
And they were doing part 1 as Infinity War. That's how they had advertised it, and part 2 was going to be Infinity Gauntlet.
Correct.
They were going to swap them. From an advertising standpoint, I guess Infinity War is just sexier than Infinity Gauntlet. It
sounds more enticing for action.
See,
what sounds like a better subtitle: Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Shopping Bag, Avengers Coaster.
Listen, I have bought some very nice shopping bags.
Infinity War, I think from a marketing standpoint was probably, I mean, not that I can really speak to marketing standpoint, I don't have a marketing background, but it sounds like it
I would like to see what they've titled it for other countries, because that often is different.
Oh, yeah.
It may just be marketing. Well, not just translation. Like in Australia, they'll name it something completely different just because of marketing and how it's going to appeal to audiences. So there's a good chance that in other countries it could translate or directly be Infinity Gauntlet. It just depends on the market.
I only want to know about that because sometimes those translations are hysterical.
My main concern really is to me it's a slippery slope. Okay. And the way my brain works, and I'm sure I've been told many times it doesn't work all that well.
Right.
It's a slippery slope because there are so many great stories. We've got decades and decades of great stories on the page, and they're titled a certain thing. And then they want to make a movie for XYZ character, and they're like, hey, that was a title of a really popular story. We're going to borrow some elements from it. And the way I look at how comic book movies could be made is that you don't when you're making a movie and you're doing the pre-production stuff and you're doing the storyboarding, well, the storyboarding has already been done for you. You've already the point I always make is because SimCity or 300, they are shot for shot, page for page, what was in the book. And when we hopefully, fingers crossed, someday get some good Green Lantern movies and we could possibly get a War of Light with all the different Lantern Corps, I'm sorry, Jeff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver and that whole team put together a masterpiece. And the storyboarding's already been done. You can skip that whole part of production and just pick up the book, and you have a $1 billion movie right there, or set of 3 movies.
The closest thing that I could feel towards that is The Last Airbender, because that movie was terrible, terrible.
Well, and I was going to make.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that because the source material, the TV, oh my God, it was amazing. I walked in that theater with such optimism, and I left the theater with such disdain.
So many people were upset with that. I never saw the movie. Like, it turned me off so
You are a blessed indidivill that you didn't see that movie. It was.
I've never seen the cartoon or anything,
but
even the movie was
amazing.
The thing I was going to say is, Marvel is not the only one that's made this mistake with these movie subtitles. DC's done it more recently with their animated ones you go into watching the animated Batman The Killing Joke expecting to see the events of the seminal graphic novel by Alan Moore, The Killing Joke, and what you get is shit.
Yeah, you got a 30-minute side story of Batman and Batgirl having an affair for some reason. Where did that come from?
Bat chicken, bat cow.
Right. It made no sense. It took away from the entire proceeding.
When it comes to the animated films,
Right.
yeah, I get upset when it's not.
Right. I get upset
because they have no excuse for it not to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's
absolutely.
Okay, but here's the thing. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because you have to remember that most of your audience probably unfamiliar with the source material, or have a feigned familiarity with the source material. The best example I can give of this, and we had this conversation at my work earlier this week, is the 2017 horror film It.
Right.
The book It was written by Stephen King and ghost written by cocaine. There is so much in that book that is crap writing. It's just bad. And because the book is all over the place. And so you can't take everything in that book and put it in the movie. Right. There's the famous stuff that everyone knows about, like the orgy in the sewers. Neat. You mostly hear about that from people who have read an article about that and are feigning like they've read the book. Okay. And it's going to be the same way with your comic films, because there's certain stuff in the comics that wasn't well written in retrospect, and that isn't going to fit, and that's going to require too much knowledge of the previous universe, and that's just going to require, like we said earlier, characters they don't have the rights to, events they don't have the rights to, terminology. So yeah, and you have to fit it into 2 hours. So you have to fit it into 2 hours or less typically.
Okay, well, to go back a couple episodes ago when we were talking about creative freedom, when it comes to animated movies or feature film movies, is there a level of creative freedom with the properties?
Yeah, I just got done doing it. Seeing some stuff about the upcoming DC animated movie Death of Superman.
Yeah, I just saw the trailer for
and
that.
I couldn't have been more mortified. I was heartbroken. I was disgusted. I will probably watch it, but I'm going to watch it through covered eyes and gritted teeth. Now,
that ate up part of your day, like thinking about that.
Dude, it did. I was so mad because it wasn't one of the first DC animated movies. Mask of the Phantasm in '92 was, I think, their first big one. That was a big
but that's not considered part of the DC animated universe.
But
Doomsday is.
Yeah, it was Superman Doomsday. And I was so excited when that came out in 2000. No, it was in the late 90s when that came out.
Superman Doomsday? No, it was like 2005 or 6.
Was it?
Yep.
They're the same thing.
Right.
I was so excited to see that actually play out, and they used Bruce Timm's, a similar art style as they used for the Justice League animated series and everything. Right. And the fight between Superman and Doomsday took up the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then it's about him coming back, and they didn't even do that accurately at all. And so when they said they were going to, take another swing at it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. They're going to up the animation quality. Not that there was anything wrong with the last one, but they were going to up the animation quality. They were going to get the story right. We were actually going to see the fight with Doomsday, how it was meant to be shown. And I start seeing footage from it. I'm like, but this isn't it either. Like, they had the entire Justice League squaring off with Doomsday.
Wow.
And in the comics in '92, when Superman died, if Wonder Woman, Batman, Hal Jordan, Cyborg, and Martian Manhunter are all involved and Flash all involved in that fight, maybe Superman doesn't die. A few of them probably are going to, right. But maybe he doesn't. And that's not how the story's playing out at all. I'm not gonna tell people don't go watch it, but that's not an accurate portrayal of it either. And I guess I'm on the other side of the fence, is that when I see a movie getting titled after an existing story, and I've whether I've read it on the page or it had a big fan following on the page, and people really want to see that play out in motion, right. Whether it's live action or animation, they want to see what they loved, in that. I mean,
that's what Sam Raimi did with Spider-Man 3 with Venom.
Right.
We were all what is this? This isn't what we wanted.
First of all, Sam Raimi had nothing to do with Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Correct.
Sam Raimi wanted to do the Sandman. It was the studio that jumped in and added that Venom crap.
Well, that's because the fans of the IP wanted to see Venom because they hadn't seen it.
Venom doesn't bother me near as much as Carnage, which is funny because I actually own the first 3 appearances of Carnage, and I can't wait for the Venom movie to drop because apparently Carnage is going to be in it, and all of a sudden those books are going to be worth way more.
Huh? Well, thanks.
Yeah, I'll be able to pay off the house on the first appearance.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our take on the titles of movies and how they are corresponding to the actual comics. Tried to break down Infinity War for you a little bit so you kind of have an idea of what you're not going to get in a movie. You're not getting this giant cosmic story with the living tribunal and eternity and infinity and death, which are all characters in the books.
Real quick before we wrap up, Black Panther.
Yeah.
How important is Black Panther and Wakanda to the overall story of...
For the movie?
For Thanos' story. Because it seems like a lot of emphasis is being put on Black Panther. So is it a reason to introduce another stone, or is there significance to why a lot of the trailer footage is in Wakanda?
I think that you're getting... Black Panther being the huge success that it was, and they were going to have Black Panther involved, and you're seeing a bunch more of Wakanda. It's a great segue. It's a great vehicle to carry into Infinity War.
So kind of like what they did with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So, and I hope our listeners got a little bit of info and some knowledge out of our breakdown of the different Infinity Stones.
I'm guessing one of them will end up being in Wakanda, and that's why we're seeing a lot of it. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean that may be where I think that it looks like from the trailers that's where a lot of the fighting is going to take place because Thanos knows, okay, the one I want is in there.
Otherwise, it's another kid, like Daredevil going against Thanos.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, please throw a fist at me.
Oh boy. Thank you again, everybody. This was episode 3. I know we've all had a lot of fun putting this together. We hope you are having a lot of fun listening to us. We hope you're learning a little something, some things you can kind of stew about yourself that's, maybe inspiring you to go to your local comic book shop, pick up some books. We told you that we were going to let you know how to win a free copy of Justice League from us. We've got the 1 copy. Jess, how is it that they can sign up for that?
Head on over to Facebook. We will have a post there where you can, like and share to enter the contest, and then we'll do a drawing. We'll announce that winner for our next episode.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. We don't know what episode 4 is going to be yet, but expect it to be as much fun and entertaining and informative as these last couple have been. Again, the contact phone number line for sending in questions, if I can remember where I wrote it down. The phone number, 805-669-7230. Again, 805-669-7230. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. If you're listening on iTunes, please rate and review our episodes. It helps us climb the charts a little bit. Make sure to head over to Twitter, the Facebook, Instagram. Lots of pictures going up on that. The other thing we wanted to just advertise real quick is here pretty soon we are going to have movie reviews coming to the Nerds Planet website. Here in the next couple weeks, we should have bios up for each of your hosts. That way you can tell us which one is your favorite, who's got the nicest beard. That's going to be me. Anyway, all right, that's been this issue of Nerds Planet. Say goodbye, y'all.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Still drunk? Nerds Planet out.
Deuces.
Damn it, fucking shit, cock and balls. Fell apart.
Your and turned into a heavy sigh. 3, 2, 1.
All right, third time the charm. Fucking everybody. Don't stare at me and laugh. Really? That breaks out the.
Welcome everybody to Tatooine today. We're here with the Tusken Raider Jess. He's going to tell us all about Bantha Poodoo, Bantha Tracks, Gappy Sticks, and those scumbags that walk into their territory and murder not just the men, but the women and the children too.
Let's give this a second.
Oh, wow.
First topic, sand. It gets everywhere. It works.
Yeah, I hate it, Colin.
Anakin to you.
Wow.
Sounds like a yak in mating season.